Hello you guys, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie and I'm really glad to have you here. Maybe you're just starting out in photography or you're just trying to break into the wedding industry as a photographer, but in this video I want to quickly go through a few do's and don'ts to being a second photographer for a wedding. But first, I wanted to mention, here is a shameless plug. My my only brother has recently released a new album. He's a musician and he released an album and you can listen to it if you want. It's called Zamru. It is a collection of different hymns. It's like a worship album that he created in his bedroom. So all of the music on this album he created on his own. He composed them all himself, as well as he also sang on the album and got some other people to sing on the album as well. You should be able to listen to his album basically wherever you stream music, YouTube, Spotify, etc. But I'll link it down below so you know you're going to the right person. So if you want to make sure you are listening to my brother's album, please use the link down below and just show him some support and raise his monthly Spotify listeners. But now let's get back into the content. So the first do when it comes to being a second shooter for a wedding is do have experience. Now, I'm not saying that you need to have been the lead wedding photographer for dozens and dozens of weddings. I'm not saying that at all. But you need to understand your camera settings, how it works. Like, you need to understand photography. You need to understand how to shoot in manual mode, posing, lighting, all of those things you need to bring to the table if you are going to be a second photographer for somebody and shooting someone's wedding day. Wedding days are very important and there's not really a do-over, so just having as much knowledge and experience as possible going into that is going to help you. When I started second shooting weddings, I had never done a wedding before, but I had done couple sessions, family sessions. I knew photography, I knew my settings, I knew poses for groomsmen. I watched a lot of videos on YouTube. I watched different webinars. I just learned a lot. I also did a styled shoot before I ever photographed a wedding, and that was a big learning experience, learning how to pose and stuff like that. So overall, I brought to the table some experience. It wasn't necessarily wedding photography experience, but it was photography experience. You need to know how to shoot in manual mode, number one. If you need help with that, I do have a video that I'll link down below on how to start shooting in manual mode, kind of what the core settings are, what they look like, what they mean, and yeah, I'll link that down below if you want to check it out. But you also need to understand things like lighting and poses. A lot of second photographers are sent to photograph the grooms and groomsmen, like they're getting ready, their group shots, groom portraits. So you need to understand maybe those poses and where to place people, the best lighting. Go into the experience with as much knowledge and experience as possible, and it will make your life easier and the lead photographer's life easier. One big don't is don't overstep on wedding day, and this can look like a few different things. So I view the position as a second photographer as somebody who is helping the lead photographer. So my attitude on wedding day is to be helpful to them. And that means carrying their stuff, holding gear and flashes and just being overall helpful to the lead photographer who hired me. So I'm not there thinking about myself, if that makes sense. So sometimes it's easy though to think about the photos you want in your portfolio, so beautiful details, couple shot, things that you want to diversify your portfolio or just expand your portfolio in general. It's easy to go into wedding days thinking like that, and it's not necessarily wrong. You do have to take kind of a step back and realize that's not what it's about. You're hired here as a contractor to do a job under somebody else's brand, and at the end of the day, it's about giving the couple photos they can love and photos that they want. So even if you're not going to walk away with this beautiful, expansive portfolio, you're still doing a job and you're still giving the client photos that they want. So what do I mean by overstepping? Overstepping to me can mean a lot of different things. Since I'm there to help the lead photographer, I'm not going to jump in and start posing people while they're trying to pose people. So if they're in the middle of posing the couple, I'm not going to walk up and just start posing them and just start trying to take over the session or the wedding as if it were my own. That's not something that I'm going to do. Something that I've done with my seconds and other lead photographers that I've shot with have done with me is recommending poses. Sometimes a lead photographer will turn to me like, hey, if you have any poses, go right ahead. And then I will pose. I do the same thing with my seconds, like, hey, do you have any pose ideas? And if they recommend them, I'm like, go right ahead, right? Collaborative environment, suggestions, but you have to wait until the lead photographer opens that door, because if you try to butt in, it just seems like you're overstepping. Additionally, overstepping on wedding day, you are hired as a second photographer under the lead photographer's brand. That means you're not there to promote yourself. If I am a second photographer, I am not there trying to network with all the vendors and the venues for my business. That's just not something that I'm doing. So I think there's a difference with, hey, yeah, I'll follow a videographer on Instagram because we work together and we kind of hit it off, and maybe I will refer them. I think there's a difference between that and sending photos to the venue. Like, you should never do that. I would never ever send any photos to any vendor when I am the second photographer. Absolutely not. You don't want to overstep in that way. You're there under somebody else's brand. So if somebody asks you who you're with, you say, I'm shooting with them. So I'm shooting with this, whether it's a company or a specific person, I'm shooting under that name. So that's who I'm promoting that day. This also includes any kind of guest. Like, if somebody walked up to me on wedding day and is like, oh my gosh, you're doing such an amazing job, who do you work for? I work for them today. I am referring everybody to the lead photographer that day. Sorry that you can hear all my dogs barking downstairs. They don't like to be left alone. They're a little bit needy. So overall, make sure you're being mindful of the lead photographer. You're there to work with them, work for them really, and help them that day. You're not there to promote your own business and expand your portfolio or anything like that. You're there to help the lead photographer at the end of the day. Now, you do want to sign a contract. If you are going to be a second photographer, you need a contract. Contracts are so important. You're gonna hear me say that a lot. Contracts are so important because in a contract, number one, you will know what's expected of you. You're gonna know how and when you're going to be paid, how long you're going to be working, where the venue is, more information on the wedding day, and how you're supposed to deliver the images. You're basically going to get all of the information within that contract. I have seen so many like photographer horror stories, which is a series that I want to start on my channel, by the way. I've seen so many photographers get burned because they were a second photographer for someone, but they never signed a contract and they delivered their photos and they haven't been paid and they're just getting ghosted. I've seen that time and time again, which is why I say contracts are so important. I will not work if a contract is not signed. And I'm not saying something like that is going to happen to you, but if something, worst case scenario, you're not getting paid, if you have a written and signed contract, you have a leg to stand on. Me personally, I send a new contract to every single one of my second shooters. Even if I've worked with them before, which I like to work with the same people, even if I've worked with them before, I will send them a new contract every single time because I want them to know what's expected of them. I want them to know what's expected of me as well. So, big fan of contracts. Also, within that contract, you'll be able to know when you can use the photos. So in your portfolio on social media, usually that's laid out in the contract, and you'll be able to know if you need to give credit, like second shot for, and tag the person on Instagram, or if you don't need to do that, if you're allowed to tag vendors at all, you'll be able to see all of that in the contract, and so that's why it's just so important. Brings me to my next point, which is don't post on social media too soon. This brings me to something that is a very big regret in my photography career because I made this mistake. I was a second photographer at a wedding. It was a gorgeous wedding. It was probably some of the best photos I've ever taken, and I wasn't thinking. I was just really excited to share them, and it turned into a whole situation. The venue saw it and started posting the photos, and this was before the lead photographer even had a chance to send them any photos. Bride saw it, and it turned into a whole mess, like the worst possible scenario. It was worst case for me, and it wasn't my intention. I just wasn't thinking, and I went ahead and posted it because I was excited to share the photos. I put the lead photographer in an awkward situation because now the bride saw some of the photos that I posted and went back to the lead photographer and then asked, hey, where are these photos? Like, that is worst case scenario, okay? And it was my fault. I should not have posted on social media that soon, and everything that happened after that, like, I take responsibility for. I did my best to make amends. I took down all of that content. You will not see that wedding anywhere on my social media, on my website, nothing. You will not see any glimpse of it, and I unfortunately, hurt the relationship I had with that lead photographer. This is a very big regret I have in my photography career because I put them in a very difficult situation. I created all of these issues when I should have just been patient or referred back to the contract and seen when I should post. And so that's why I wanted to share this point of don't post on social media too soon. Hi, Editing Katie here. I wanted to make a note, because I didn't in my original video, that I am overly vigilant about not posting on social media. I definitely will not post longer than the allotted time. Even if they say it's fine after 30 days, I will wait longer because I do not want this situation to happen again. So I hope that you can learn from my mistake and this experience and make better choices than I did. I want to help the lead photographer. I'm there for them. And so this was just a very stupid mistake. And so I'm sharing it with you. So hopefully you don't make the same mistake as me. So if you're wanting to post on social media, refer to the contract. That's why, again, contracts are really important. And lastly, this is something that I have done that I get a lot of compliments on, and it is do shoot behind the scenes photos. This is what I do for every lead photographer that I work with. I try really hard to get photos of them working and taking pictures, fluffing dresses, all of that, because as photographers, we're always taking pictures of other people. No one's ever taking a picture of us. So I think it's just a very nice way to give them more photos. I love the photos that my seconds take of me while I'm working. I think it's a nice thing to do. So I've always been thanked for this. As a second photographer, when I do take pictures of the photographer working, they always make a comment of oh my gosh, thank you so much for the behind the scenes photos. So if you are going to start photographing weddings as a second photographer, definitely try to get some shots of the lead photographer working and doing their thing, because I think they'd really appreciate it. And that is the entire list of do's and don'ts of being a second wedding photographer. Of course, there are more tips and tricks out there. This is just a small list that I compiled. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you learned from my mistakes. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out my brother's music, Derek Singer, his new album Zamru, linked down below, and I'll see you next time.